All right, yeah, so I'm thinking we get rid of the whole welcome thing.
All right, then start out however you'd like.
All right.
The bean holes, it's Eric and Nate, the bean holes, they're really pretty great, so shut up and listen to them talk. Eric and Nate.
Well, it's a new year, and with a new year, you know what that means.
It's the bean holes, mother flipper.
Boom!
Wow. Today we are kicking off a month of Marvel, but
What kind of Marvel?
yeah, we have like 6 months of Marvel out of the year lately, but this is Captain Marvel. So we're going to talk about Carol Danvers.
And the whole story of the Captain Marvel name and universe and everything that's connected to it, because there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah. I realized I was holding it crooked while we were... Okay. There is a lot to talk about. It's very interesting. Many people are aware, of course, of the fact that there's a Shazam movie coming out. Looks like another fun part of the DC universe.
Finally.
Yeah, many people, of course, are also aware that Shazam used to be called Captain Marvel, and for a while it was just okay. Like DC and Marvel were like, all right, we've each got characters called Captain Marvel, and that's fine. But that was an interim period.
Right. Right.
Just checking.
And actually, Shazam from DC was in the background still named Captain Marvel until 2011.
Right.
In which, when they rebranded the character, DC finally just caved in and said, this character is just named Shazam, and it's the Shazam family. And
Which is interesting, because that means the character can't say his name
Without turning.
changing from either the superhero or the teenage boy.
yeah. So what if he's the superhero and somebody's like, hey, what's your name again? He's like, oh, I'm Shazam. And then he just turns into a kid. And I'm like, that's a weird trick.
Or you ask the kid, is he like a high school freshman, I guess? Something like that, if they kept him 14 in the comics. So someone's like, who's your favorite superhero? I like Superman. He'd be like, I like Shazam! And that would be...
He hits puberty. Like, he hits like ultimate puberty right there.
ultimate puberty.
I hate when that happens.
So here's the deal. Got some notes here on times.
Sedilio.
All right, so originally...
Yes.
In the 40s, Captain Marvel, the one who's now known as Shazam, was published by Fawcett Comics. He was sort of a pale imitation of Superman, but the twist they had on the character that he is a kid that magically transforms into an adult male superhero, that was really appealing to
the kids, because you would read that and you would... Because every kid reading
if I'm
comics...
a 12, 13, 14-year-old kid reading comics...
You'd want to be Superman, so now here's your character that is a kid getting to be Superman. But it didn't sit well with DC after a while.
Well, but the other thing is, it not only did it appeal well to the boys that were generally considered the prime target for superhero comics, he was such a popular character very quickly that they made the whole Marvel family. So there was Mary Marvel, there was Captain Marvel Jr. I guess that's just another kid turning into a kid superhero, but it would be...
I'm sure what really ruffled DC's feathers was that at some point, Captain Marvel was actually outselling Superman.
Absolutely.
Comics.
Well, yeah, and that's when they said, okay, we're going to sue you because you just ripped off our character and started outselling us. So they did. Fawcett had to stop printing Captain Marvel. Eventually, DC ended up buying Fawcett and just kept the character buried for a while, and over time decided, let's use the character again.
Right.
And Captain Marvel, this Captain Marvel was in my comic book reading experience, late 80s and through the 90s. He was a major part of the DC universe.
Yeah, they really mixed him in very well.
And there's definitely some things they've done lately that I really enjoy, where you really see a lot more of the personality the fact that he is mentally and emotionally just a kid. You see that, so he doesn't react to things the same way that all the adults around him do, and he's just a big kid, and I like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's not the Captain Marvel we're talking about.
Right.
So
at some point, I don't know the exact year, you might have it, but at some point in between DC buying the character, Marvel Comics stepped in.
yeah, well, it was after Captain Marvel from Fawcett had been shut down, and for a while Fawcett Comics was owned by DC, I believe. I don't have the exact year they bought Fawcett, but nobody was using the Captain Marvel name, and Marvel, we've talked about it before, the name escapes me, they were something else. Starts with an A, I believe, but there's something else, but under the guidance of a then unknown fella called Stan Lee, they, in the 60s? Yeah, around 61, I think it was, that they really started transitioning to all superhero comics instead of the horrors, the westerns, and the romance stuff that the previous iteration of the company was known as. And I believe it was Fantastic Four that first kicked it off. That's why they're called the first family of superheroes.
Right.
Is not just they were the first family to have superpowers, because Marvel family, we just talked about it.
There were other super people before the Fantastic Four.
But really, they were Marvel's first superheroes.
Right.
So anyway, as the company became Marvel and they started thinking about it, they realized nobody has the name Captain Marvel for a superhero right now. We should try to get control of that.
So we're Marvel. There should be a Captain Marvel.
So they created the character of Captain Marvel, who was really another Superman copy initially. Marvel was an alien who could fly and had super strength. Over time, they made him a lot more like a cosmic hero rather than an alien that is on Earth fighting crime. Much more out in the galaxy fighting other aliens, alien threats, and not always fighting for Earth. What is he, Kree? I think he's
a Kree superhero.
So Marvel was now the one publishing a Captain Marvel comic.
And from what I know is that because of I don't know how the copyright is set up, but they basically have to release a Captain Marvel story once every 2 years.
Yeah.
So that's why when if you don't know the history of Captain Marvel, you're looking at this new movie coming out and you're seeing Brie Larson, like, oh, it's a female. There's been a bunch of different Captain Marvels over the years.
Captain's Marvel.
And they just keep adding new people to take over the mantle, and different people have become the character. And even Carol Danvers, who is Brie Larson is playing in the movie, her original superhero name was Miss Marvel.
Yeah, well, you're jumping ahead of the timeline.
I'm
a
sorry,
little bit,
but
because what I want to talk about is Supergirl,
Okay.
who was created in 1959. The reason this is relevant, not only because one of the initial female superheroes that was really pushed by the publishers, but her name. Her Kryptonian name, Superman's Kal-El, is blank for a minute. Superman's Kal-El came to Earth, was adopted, had the secret identity of Clark Kent, and goes by Superman. So he's a 3-name superhero. Supergirl, his cousin, if you watch the show, you already know this part. She's got the name Kara Zor-El, and in the comics, initially, she went by Linda Lee Danvers. So that name, Carol, there's two issues here with her being called Captain Marvel. So she went by Linda Lee Danvers, and as her name on Earth.
Secret identity.
Yeah. Eventually, they kind of phased her out. They felt she was a poor copy of Superman, and they already had a flagship female character that wasn't kind of insulted by her own name, Wonder Woman rather than Wonder Girl. A lot of people take offense to the idea that an adult woman is calling herself Supergirl. I shouldn't say a lot, a few.
It fits well, and it's definitely there was like a time where for female representation in comics, you would just take an already established popular male superhero and give him a female counterpart.
Right.
So
and now we try not to just make counterparts, but actually create full-fledged individual characters of different genders and races. But they weren't doing that so much back then. So then, I believe it was in 1968, the character of Carol Danvers was created by Marvel Comics because they wanted to, create an empowering character for themselves. And, the end of the 60s, very much a good idea to start creating some female characters.
Right.
So Carol Danvers was initially an Air Force pilot?
yeah,
No, an officer. She was an Air Force officer. But she gained her powers from, she basically, got a copy of Mar-Vel's powers, and he stayed as Captain Marvel, and she became Ms. Marvel. And as we were saying, we won't go through all the details. I think we actually covered this last year anyway, when they first announced it, that, that she came, she was Ms. Marvel, and then they kind of
gave her the mantle of the
transitioned
Captain
over. But they chose to name her Carol Danvers, knowing they were going to kind of make her their own Supergirl. So we don't know, nobody really knows whether that was just an accident, whether it was an homage, whether it was somebody just thought it would be fun to poke the hornet's nest and just kind of really stick it to DC.
Because
we don't know.
Marvel, if you look at their cast of characters, the more popular ones, they don't have a Superman. They pretty much avoided that all-powerful individual flying around.
DC basically was like gods. Their superheroes were gods, and then one regular Joe that
Batman.
somehow managed to compete on their level. And
if you
Marvel
have the
Comics,
amount of money, you could be a god too.
Well, yes. Marvel Comics had the success of Marvel Comics throughout the 60s and onward was because it was really character driven. It was not about how powerful these characters are. It was not about looking to be saved by these characters. It was really about their personal lives,
Right.
with the fantasy
Steve
element
Rogers,
backdrop.
Peter Parker, Bruce Banner, regular dudes. Accident happens. They are now superpowered.
Yeah, I don't think all of them were accidents.
Right. Well,
Steve
could have
Rogers.
gone wrong.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, they didn't have their Superman, so bringing this character along to basically... Because I believe as of right now, Captain Marvel is one of the most powerful characters in Marvel Comics.
I mean, you look at, especially, there's been a version of this character, it's binary. It's like the power of a binary star system or something. I don't know.
That was Carol Danvers. She was known as
Yeah.
Binary, and then it was Warhawk. There was
Warbird,
another
Warhawk,
Warbird.
Get that pulled up, Eric.
Warbird was another name she went by.
But yeah, and as binary, incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
What were we saying? Yeah, they've phased out Mar-Vell and really are focusing lately on Carol Danvers is our Captain Marvel.
Right, and I believe in some sort of reboot, isn't it that she, kind of like in a Green Lantern sense, like Mar-Vell, his blood mixes with hers, and that's how she gets the powers?
There was like a genetic transference ray thing that put Kree DNA, But now what they've done they recently put out a comic just this past year, if I'm not mistaken, that basically her mom tells her like, yeah, that stuff that just activated your powers, but you've been part Kree all along.
Oh, okay. So I wonder if they're going to go with that route in the new movie.
I'm sure they only put it into the comics so that people wouldn't have much of a leg to stand on if they got upset that that's how they do it in the movie.
Right.
Just like they did the whole Peter Parker turning into a spider and giving birth to himself, so that he could have organic web shooters, just so that the comics and movies were in line with the Tobey Maguire movies.
Right. So yeah, I think she was voted number 11 on the top 50 Avengers of all time in IGN in 2012.
So on the top 50 list.
Yeah.
You said voted number 11. I was like, so did they just have a contest? Who's the 11th best superhero?
Hey, she made it though. That was the contest. Yeah, but the character super popular, and even the Miss Marvel name has kept in comics. I believe it's Kamala Khan.
Kamala Khan is fantastic.
Currently has it, yeah, and they've completely reinvented that character. So both names have kind of have been brought up over time, shifting from different characters, and now they're in a pretty solid state because I've known a lot of people really like the Kamala Khan Miss Marvel stories, and especially the Carol Danvers Captain Marvel. I mean, she's gotten so popular that's why this is her big movie, and this is Marvel Studios' big female-led superhero movie. Yeah. So I know it's gonna blow the box office completely out of the water. I was gonna say Aquaman, but he's been doing good in the box office himself.
That's good.
Yeah. So we're gonna have an entire month of Captain Marvel. So join us every week in the month of January to listen to some more Captain Marvel stuff.
Till then, keep on being it.
The Bean Holes.
Look it up.